Thank God it's Friday, Eastern Football League lovers. It's week 11 in the Eastern Football League, and it's Friday preview time for another week. My name is Ben Warren-Smith, and joining me, as he does always on a Friday afternoon, is the big man who milks cows for a living, Peter Baird. Good afternoon to you, Pete.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, BWS. A magical Friday out there at the moment. Can't wait to get out to the footy tomorrow. Wherever you might be heading, it's going to be a fantastic weekend of footy as you go local for your football.
Filling in for Ben Waterworth this week and may become a fortnightly fixture on the Friday preview is the EFL Media Team's Daniel Cencic. Good afternoon to you, Dan.
Very good afternoon to you, BWS, and to Peter Baird. Yeah, look, can't wait to get my teeth into this one.
Well, let's start in Division 4 then, shall we, gentlemen? And the first game we're going to have a look at, Peter Baird, is the big game out at Ferntree Gully Reserve with the Eagles taking on Surrey Park. This should be a one-sided affair.
Yeah, Ferntree Gully had the week off last week, BWS, with the bye in Division 4. Surrey Park, they had a fortnight off before that. They played Nunawading last week. Very disappointing day for all out at Surrey Park. Went down by 99 points. This, I reckon, will be a bit of a one-sided affair. I reckon the Eagles, the week off would have really served them well. Some of their older bodies would have been looking for that little bit of a break. But guys like Paul Giannopoulos, Phil Muscat, they'll be more refreshed now coming back. I really like Ferntree Gully in this one. I think this one might be a blowout. I don't think Surrey Park will be able to match the youth and experience that the mix that Ferntree Gully have at the moment. I'm tipping Ferntree Gully to get up quite comfortably in this one, BWS.
They're knocking on the door of the top five, are the Ferntree Gully Eagles. They've got some players in some ripper form in Ben Rawlings and Jake Callanan, Ricky Aitken and Trent Harrop. There's just a plethora of good players right across the board for the Ferntree Gully Eagles. They're a young side. They're finally getting their straps together and they're making a charge for the finals. They'll win this easy. Good game happening out at Forest Hill Reserve tomorrow afternoon, Daniel Cencic, with the Zebras taking on the Cougars in a match that could be closer than what people would have thought a few weeks ago.
Yeah, look, it's Forest Hill are in 7th position, Kilsyth are in 9th position. Look, funny thing about Forest Hill, they've hit a bit of a form slump of late. Their last win coming in round 6 versus the Ferntree Gully Eagles. So they've since lost all their games and of course they've had the bye as well. But if they're to be right in the finals race calculations, they really need to win this one. They put in a very strong showing against South Belgrave a few weeks ago, so that's a real positive for them. But I think they'll be too strong for the Kilsyth Cobras. Kilsyth only 2 wins for the year, struggling big time. There's no better week for the Forest Hill Footy Club to break their losing streak than this week. And look, Michael Cardamone, the Shoulders boys, Whitty and the Sincotta boys, all in fantastic form. Cardamone, of course, kicking 19 goals for the year, and Brett Shoulders with 10. Grant Sykes has kicked 9 as well. I think Forest Hill Footy Club will be too strong in this one.
They're thereabouts, aren't they, Forest Hill? They've got 4 wins for the year, but they haven't won for such a long time. They will have looked at this on the fixture. You'd think that they'd pencil this in for a win, but a fortnight ago, Kilsyth showed that they're a pretty decent side on their day. They weren't able to match it with Sylvan last week, but Sylvan have been one of the informed sides of Division 4. Expect this to be relatively close for 3 quarters or so, but I think the Zebras will run over the top. The Eastern Lions host South Belgrave tomorrow afternoon, Peter Baird, out at Lewis Park. And a couple of weeks ago, this was deemed as match of the round. Maybe not so now.
Yeah, over the last couple of weeks, this game might have lost a little bit of its gloss. The Eastern Lions have dropped 2 in a row. They went down to Sylvan, up at Sylvan Recreation Reserve a fortnight ago. They lost to Park Orchards out at Domini Reserve last week. They go back home to Lewis Park, a temporary home this year, and they're not going to have it all their own way, I don't think, this week. They come up against the South Belgrave side, who were very, very impressive last week, absolutely demoralising Canterbury to the tune of 111 points. They had 14 individual goal kickers last week, South Belgrave. They were dominant. Brock Ferguson's just been a rock for them. Probably one of the best defenders in Division 4 this year. He's been named in their best 7 times this year. Lucas Appleby's still kicking goals, got 48 for the year so far. I just fear for the Eastern Lions, even though they're out at home, South Belgrave are going to be too strong. The Eastern Lions, they miss Darren Murphy. He's their leading goal kicker. He's been named in their best much as any player they've got on their list this year. He's been out with appendicitis. He's a huge loss for the Eastern Lions. Steve Ziggis-Mundy's been fantastic for them, been trying hard, as is their captain, Jamie Devonish, but I don't think they're going to be able to match it with the might of South Belgrave, the Saints in a canter out at Lewis Park.
I agree with you, Pete. I like South Belgrave tomorrow. They've only had the one blemish for the season. They like to travel. They like to put sides away when they're on the road as well, and I expect them to do it again tomorrow. Match of the round out at Coonung Reserve tomorrow in Division 4 sees Nunawading taking on the Basin, Daniel Cencic, in what could be a very good game, first versus third.
Yeah, this week may learn whether the Division 4 flag is wide open or simply a two-horse race between the Basin and South Belgrave. It's going to be interesting to see if there is a gap between that first and third position on the ladder. It's funny because Nunawading got blown out of the water by South Belgrave earlier this season, so this is really their week to respond to thoughts that Nunawading may be an also-ran come September. I think a lot of class lies with the Basin, though. You look at players like Todd Power, Galiccio, Coltrera, Kruger, Clinton King and Dan Braber. Some interesting stats here as well. Galiccio has kicked 41 goals for the season, Coltrera 27, Matt Smith 20, Todd Power 20 as well, and Maxi Kruger named in their best 5 times. I think they're going to have too much class, and I think that gap between first and third is a wide canyon.
It is only 3 games though, Dan, and although Nunawading should be right up to the task and will have penciled this game in weeks ago as one of their real big challenges for the year, and let's face it, the Basin are the hunted side in Division 4 and they've got teams coming up against them every single week, putting in probably 110% effort if they're not already giving that. I don't think the Basin are going to fall tomorrow to Nunawading, but who knows, it's going to be a close game, but I think the Bears are going to get away with another win. The last game in Division 4 tomorrow, Peter Baird, is the Wayne Hanley Cup out at the Canterbury Sports Ground with the Cobras taking on the Sharks.
Yeah, 2 teams with different fortunes last week. Canterbury went down by 111 points to South Belgrave. Park Orchards caused a bit of an upset, knocking the Eastern Lions off by 1 point. 2 vastly different form lines to take into this game, as you said, for the Wayne Hanley Cup out at the Canterbury Sports Ground. I just think that the Park Orchards Sharks, they're on a bit of a roll at the moment. I think they fancy their chances against a side like Canterbury. John O'Dressing's been absolutely great for the Sharks this year, a player with plenty of experience we've seen around the Eastern Football League for a while, leading a team of very young players. Peter Nicholson's got this Park Orchards team playing as a group. I think they can match it with Canterbury. Canterbury have been very disappointing. They've only got the 2 wins for the year to date. I'm not sure, even at home, whether they're going to be able to match the league speed and running intensity of this very young Park Orchards side. This is a team that took the Eastern Lions by surprise last week. 2 weeks ago, the Eastern Lions were sitting in second position of the ladder. Park Orchards surprised them. They got over the line by 1 point in a game where they were pushed all day. There was nothing in it. I really like Park Orchards in this one. I would have said it was an upset a couple of weeks ago, but I reckon they'll take favouritism into this game, BWS, and I reckon they'll come away with a win from the Canterbury Sports Ground.
Canterbury will have looked at their season at the halfway point, Pete, and been really disappointed to be only sitting at a couple of wins for the year. They will have penciled this game in at the start of the season as probably getting 2 wins against Park Orchards. They fell over that hurdle in round 1 when the Sharks won their first game in the Eastern Football League against the Canterbury Football Club. I think they're out for a bit of redemption tomorrow. They're at their home ground tomorrow. There's a little extra something about this game with the Wayne Hanley Cup being played for, and I just get the feeling the Cobras might do enough to get over the line tomorrow. Park Orchards, they had a tough slog last weekend, and it was a grind right till the end. Maybe that might make them tiresome come late in the game, but Canterbury need this win for the football club. That's the 5 games taken care of in Division 4 as we turn our attention to Division 3 with the first game we're going to have a look at is out at Coldstream Reserve, Daniel Cencic, with the Cougars taking on the Redbacks.
Yeah, 2 completely different teams here, BWS, 12 versus 6th, Ringwood in 6th as well. One side whose season's effectively over, another whose season is still well and truly alive, 6th vying to stay in touch with the finals race. It's going to be one the Redbacks need to bank and bank well with added percentage. The pressure lies with Ringwood. A loss could see them slide to that 5 and 6 mark with some tough games ahead. The danger here is Coldstream have nothing to lose, so they will go out there and play their absolute hearts out. Coldstream are very good offensively, better than most in Division 3 in fact. However, the verdict, I think the Redbacks will be too strong. I can't see them dropping this one. If they do, then they won't deserve to play in the finals. And some interesting stats here. I think James Katsiavos is in fantastic form for Ringwood, kicking 34 goals from 8 matches so far, and Luke Davis has been named in their best 7 times, so Ringwood comfortably for mine.
In past games, I would have picked Coldstream at home. I generally like them when they play out there, but Ringwood, what a ripper side they've turned out to be in season 2012, and I expect them to win quite comfortably out there at Coldstream tomorrow, albeit away from home. 2 games in a row for the Dockers down at Templestowe Reserve, Peter Baird, as they welcome a Jet side who got upset last week by the Pioneers.
Templestowe, along with the Glen Waverley Hawks, are probably the form teams in the moment in Division 3. 5 on the trot now for the Dockers. They started the year very slowly, but they've really hit their straps of late. Guys like Kane Magames through their middle. Alistair Quinn, the big ruckman they picked up from the Whitehorse Pioneers. He's made a huge influence to this Templestowe team. And the usual suspects, guys like George Sarnides, Troy Resentless. Now, Resentless is having a fantastic year through the middle for the Dockers. Heathmont, they were disappointing last week. They went down to the Whitehorse Pioneers by 7 points. And the key for them was they were able to hold guys like Odermatt and Sheen to a total of 4 goals between them. Heathmont are very reliant on the influence of Darren Sheen. We know how dominant he was in Division 4 last year. We kicked well over the 100 goals for the year. This year he's got 40s to his name, but Paul Eccles, his Templestowe counterpart, who we've also seen bag tons over the last few years, is only 2 behind him. This shapes as a shootout between the 2 big spearheads in Division 3. I just really like the Dockers. I reckon they're in better form at the moment. I reckon if they can once again limit the influence of Odermatt and Sheen, and I think the Templestowe backline and John Brown, their coach, have plans in place to do that, I think Templestowe could come away with a win. I wouldn't be surprised if this one gets a little bit nasty out there and Templestowe blow Heathmont away, BWS.
Heathmont have shown an ability over the last couple of seasons to answer a bad loss with a really credible performance the following weekend. Whether that can turn into a win tomorrow at Templestowe Reserve is another story, because the Dockers are red hot at the moment and I really like the look of them. All their good players are playing well. They seem to just be gelling at the right time. They were a little bit slow to start off with, but boy have they come good. Dockers will win this one by about 6 goals. Tormore Reserve, Daniel Cencic, is the venue tomorrow afternoon as Boronia take on Mitcham. How do you see this one panning out?
Well, Boronia had a very costly loss last weekend. They dropped from 2nd position on the ladder to 4th to bring them back to that even pack in Division 3 with Templestowe and Heathmont. And, of course, the Tigers went down to Ringwood. Look, a lot of Mitcham's tests this season against the better sides have been very disappointing, barring the Ringwood game in round 1. They went down to North Ringwood earlier in the season and the Glen Waverley Hawks, and of course Boronia, where they lost by 35 points. And I rate Boronia as a side. They're great defensively and have proven that they can keep strong forwards honest, as we saw with the Heathmont game with Darren Sheen and Lee Odermatt. I think Boronia are going to bounce back this weekend. They've got a lot of firepower with Matthew Smith and Sam Williams kicking 15 goals each. And of course, Luke Allison and Patrick Garrity named in the best 6 times. Boronia for mine.
Both of these sides have been brought back to earth a little bit of late, with Mitcham struggling to go into that extra gear that can elevate them into the top 5 and really make a challenge for things this year. Boronia, they've dropped 2 out of the last 3 in games against sides who will probably play finals looking at the ladder at this point in the year. They'll be looking to rebound tomorrow. They won't want to let this one go. They have been the stronger side to date, so I'm tipping the Hawks. I've got a real funny feeling about the game out at Kimberley Reserve tomorrow, with Chirnside Park taking on the informed Wantirna South. And that feeling is so strong, we've decided to make this our match of the day on 98.1 Radio Eastern. So make sure you tune in from 1pm till 6pm for all the match highlights and, of course, around the ground scores. But I get the feeling, Pete, you don't think this is going to be as close as what I do.
Chirnside Park, BWS, they're yet to convince me. They've dropped 4 in a row, haven't won a game since late May. 4 on the trot losses. As the weather has turned and the seasons have changed, so have the fortunes of the Chirnside Park Footy Club. The winter weather has brought icy conditions around Melbourne, and the Chirnside Park Panthers have gone cold. I'm not impressed with their form recently. They went down to Warrandyte by 6 points last week, giving the Bloods their 2nd win for the year, whereas Wantirna South caused one of the biggest upsets in all of the Eastern Football League last week, knocking off the previously undefeated North Ringwood Saints. I just think Wantirna South would have got a huge amount of belief out of their win last week. Chris Phillips, their vice-captain, who we spoke to on the huddle on Wednesday night, he's moved up forward for them. He's kicked 16 goals for the year now. He's starting to fill that void that Michael Jamison has left since he went down with his injury. Taylor Leggett, their young gun, leader young gun nomination this week, has been absolutely fantastic for them. They've got a fine mix of youth and a great band of leaders at the club, led by Andrew Teakle, who's been a regular in the SEN Team of the Year. I just like the Devils in this one. Brett Davidson's Chirnside Park will need to address their recent form slump. I'm not sure whether it's going to happen tomorrow afternoon out at Kimberley Reserve. You'll be out there, BWS, on 98.1 Radio Eastern to call the action, so you'll be able to tell us all what's happening out there. For mine, though, I reckon the Devils will get away with a win.
It's one of those line-in-the-sand games tomorrow afternoon at Kimberley Reserve, Pete. The Panthers, they've got their 4 wins for the year, and funnily enough, they're only 3 games outside the top 5. Tomorrow is make or break for their season. They either win and keep their season alive, or they lose and they have to look forward to next year and they try some different things. If Brett Davidson was ever going to fire his side up for a win, tomorrow afternoon is going to be it. They've shown in recent years they're a tough side to beat at home. I'm not disrespecting Wantirna South. I know they're in good form and I know they've been in a lot of games this year. It is a test for them again tomorrow, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the Devils get up tomorrow, but I've just got a sniff that the Panthers might get up in a tight one. Who would have thought, Daniel Cencic, one of the most talked about games tomorrow afternoon will be played out at Warrandyte Reserve, with the Bloods taking on the Whitehorse Pioneers, both sides coming off wins last week.
Yeah, desperate game for both sides as they fight relegation this season down to Division 4. I went out to Warrandyte Recreation Reserve today, and the home ground advantage will lie with Warrandyte. It's a big ground with the wide open spaces, and I think it's one of the very few grounds in the competition that stays true to the 50-metre arc line. The Whitehorse Pioneers will be on cloud 9 after claiming a scalp last week in Heathmont. Warrandyte getting home over Chirnside Park by a goal as well. I've liked Warrandyte's last few weeks. Aside from a poor showing from Baronia, they've been very competitive in most recent matches, such as against Ringwood. The Whitehorse Pioneers, on the other hand, have suffered some very heavy losses in the last few weeks. And credit to Warrandyte, they haven't dropped their heads once this season. They've kept on keeping on. I think Warrandyte for mine.
Boy, this game's going to be close out there at Warrandyte tomorrow. Who could guess this one? It's a flip of the coin match. I'm going to disagree with you there, Dan. I like the Whitehorse Pioneers. They were pretty close to a Mitcham side 2 weeks ago, and then they got their win last week, which was a major upset against Heathmont, who have proven that they've been pretty good against some top sides this year. So it's very evident that the Whitehorse Pioneers are improving under Tony Vitaka this season. Warrandyte as well will be pleased with their efforts over the last month of football. They're an improving side as well. They're a tough side to beat out at Warrandyte Reserve, and I think the Whitehorse Pioneers are up to the challenge tomorrow. Almost match of all 4 divisions is out at Capital Reserve tomorrow, Peter Baird, as the Glen Waverley Hawks take on North Ringwood. This is top versus second.
This is absolutely a ripper contest out at Capital Reserve tomorrow. The Glen Waverley Hawks, they've taken all before them over the last few weeks. They've moved up to outright second now on the Division 3 ladder. They come up against a North Ringwood side who were shocked last week to go down to Wantirna South by the solitary point. Their first loss for the year. They only sit that 1 game clear of the Glen Waverley Hawks now, and these 2 teams meet out at Capital Reserve. I couldn't wait to get out there to have a look at this one, VWS. I might head down there tomorrow if I'm not doing anything myself. I know I've got the afternoon off from the media team. This is going to be a ripper contest. I really like the midfields of both these teams. They are super pacey, and I reckon that might be where the game's won or lost. Guys like Sam Zickman, Wayne McGee, Darren Dewar, Clint Walker and Carl Schoenmakers for the Glen Waverley Hawks, going up against Van Noonan, Anthony Sharp, Brett Moyle, Dwayne Kelly from North Ringwood. These 2 teams move the ball so quickly from end to end. I reckon the other area where this game could be decided is in the ruck contest. 2 of the best tap ruckmen in Division 3 will go head-to-head. Adam Tuck taking on Big Disco Danny Kennor. I think whichever of those guys can give first use to their midfielders might decide this game. Another key for the Glen Waverley Hawks will be to try and minimise the influence of guys like Matty Weeks and Max Melzer rebounding from half-back. Both these teams have power forwards in Matthew Canelli and Andrew Azzopardi for the Hawks, Scott De Kaiser and Josh Barrett for North Ringwood. I just reckon this game is a toss of the coin at the moment, Ben. I'm going to go the Glen Waverley Hawks to cause a bit of an upset. I'm a Hawks fan. I'm going to stick with the Hawks in this one.
Wow, what a match this is going to be tomorrow afternoon out at Capital Reserve, Pete. No one really saw that first loss coming to North Ringwood. They were just coasting along nicely and then met a side who are up to the challenge all afternoon. And expect that again tomorrow from the Glen Waverley Hawks, who have really risen to the challenge in the last month of football, played some pretty top sides in the Division 3, and they get another crack at it tomorrow playing the top of the ladder Saints. You mentioned the players who are going to play a part tomorrow. I know Daniel Walls returned to the side last week, so they'll have to adjust to having him back down forward. And with the Glen Waverley Hawks, there may be a chance that Simon Grasser returns to the forward line, and wouldn't that be a massive boost? Not too sure on how the selections are going to go in either side this week, but my selection is going to have to be North Ringwood to bounce back tomorrow, Pete, but you know it's going to be a close one. 6 great games across Division 3 tomorrow afternoon, so make sure you get out there and support your local clubs. Let's now have a look at Division 2 with the first game we are going to have a look at is the Waverley Blues taking on Mooroolbark out at Mount Waverley Reserve. This should be a one-way affair, Daniel Cencic?
Yeah, tale of two sides really, 8th versus 2nd. Mooroolbark have not done a lot wrong this season, whereas the Waverley Blues have only won the 3 games. Big worry for the Waverley Blues, and a deciding factor in this match lie within one of the side's strengths and the other's Achilles heel. Mooroolbark's forward line, comprising of Tolevsky, Ford and Polkinghorne, and the Waverley Blues backline, who have leaked some pretty big scores this season. We look at players like Tolevsky with 45 goals from 10 games this season. Matthew Ford's been among their best a few times. Michael Smith's been in their best 8 times. Other players such as Polkinghorne, Georgiou, Martin, Wiley as well. I think Mooroolbark will do this one by about 10 goals BWS.
There's been different times during this season where people have sold the Waverley Blues short, and I'm sure most people out there can put their hand up for that one last week. They got a great win against Doncaster away from home. They returned to Mount Waverley Reserve tomorrow, where they gave it right up to a Roeville side a few weeks ago. They made another top 3 contender in the division. I think they'll be thereabouts for a half, but the Mustangs, they're super impressive this year, and I agree with you that they'll get the win, but I don't think it'll be 10 goals. Bayswater have been right up to the task of late, and they are at home tomorrow against Doncaster East, who were quite disappointing last week against Mooroolbark.
Yeah, Donny East, they came up against a red-hot Mooroolbark last week. Unfortunately, they went down by 77 points. But Bayswater's form's been okay. They beat the Waverley Blues by over 100 points a fortnight ago, and they got closer to Montrose than any other team other than Roeville have this year. They only lost by 15 points last week out at Montrose Reserve. That's a really credible loss. I think you can gain a lot, even though you didn't come away with the 4 points. I think Bayswater are just starting to adjust to the game plan under Neil Winterton. Joel Galvin's leading the charge for them through the middle. Hayden Schroeder's been really good, and Wayne McInerney as that small forward. He's kicked 37 goals for the year. He gives them plenty of options. For Donny East, it's the old brigade that are really leading the charge. Guys like Lee Murphy and Michael Parthenides. They've got a good lift out of some of the younger guys like Tim Whitty and Jared Marshall. I don't think they're going to be able to match it with Bayswater tomorrow, though. I'm sticking with the Waters, and they should win this one quite comfortably.
Big test tomorrow for the Doncaster East Football Club. It hasn't been a happy hunting ground, the Bayswater Oval, for a few years now for the Lions, and they'll be out to make amends tomorrow. How are they going to do it? They need to adjust their game style to play the wide expanses of Bayswater Oval. They need to use players like Luke McLeod and Anthony Marguccio. Shane Thompson's been a live wire up forward for them in recent games. Rami Ayubi across half forward, he's been in ripper form. If these players can fight for Doncaster East, they can take it right up to Bayswater. But Bayswater themselves, well, they've been challenging the good sides in Division 2 for about 6 weeks now, and everyone is taking notice of them. They love playing their home ground. They've got that edge over Doncaster East with that home ground advantage out there. As you mentioned, Pete, Joel Galvin, but his brother Mitch and Russell Coombe. They've got Samuel Nevins and Leach. There's so many good players in the Bayswater football side. I expect them to get over the line tomorrow by about 5 goals. Upper Ferntree Gully were really disappointing last week, Daniel Cencic, but they get a chance to redeem themselves tomorrow against a winless Mulgrave out at Kings Park.
Yeah, very disappointing showing against Roeville up at Ferntree Gully last weekend, only kicking the 3 goals. And Mulgrave, of course, have had a season to forget, 0-10 so far. This is a game for Upper Ferntree Gully that can really keep their year alive. Mulgrave defence are really leaking goals week by week, having conceded 1,120 points. And it doesn't look like it's going to improve this weekend with Jay Sherlock on fire and Matthew Petraka with 42 goals between them, and Alex Calder and Bradley Carroll also on fire for the Upper Ferntree Gully Football Club. I think it's going to be a very one-way affair. Upper Ferntree Gully by plenty.
As I said when introducing this game, the Kings were really disappointing last weekend, but I still think this game presents itself as a danger game for Upper Ferntree Gully. Mulgrave, they're going to get a win at some point during the season. They will have looked at the results over the couple of weeks for Upper Ferntree Gully, who haven't been in good form themselves. There's a very slight differential in points scored for the year between these both sides, so if Mulgrave can shut down those key forwards in Sherlock and Petraka and manage to spread the goal kickers as they've done well so all year, with between Booth and Skicko and Hansford, I think Mulgrave might be able to take it up to Upper Ferntree Gully tomorrow. Upset of the round, Lions to get their first win. A game that would have your full attention tomorrow out at Seabeck Oval, Peter Baird, is the Roeville Hawks taking on the Montrose Demons in what is definitely match of the round in Division 2.
Yeah, this one had our full attention in round 3 as we went out and covered it at Montrose Reserve as the radio game in that one there. Montrose probably looked the better team all day. Sorry, you Hawks fans, particularly you, the judge, Johnny Grosvenor down at the Roval Footy Club. You don't like me saying that as Roval came away with a win, but I think Montrose were the better side. This is going to be a super contest out at Cencic Oval as Montrose start looking for a bit of revenge against the Hawks. You've got 2 fantastic forward lines. You've got the forward line of Montrose led by Billy Schilling and Adam Cook, whereas Roval have got guys like Michael Bussey and Nathan Hicks. Matty Stanley might drift forward and kick a few goals for them. For mine, though, Roval's midfield have been great this year. They've been led by Alex Frawley, who would have to be in that Division 2 Team of the Year at this stage of the year. He's been fantastic. Their backline's held strong. Mason Crozier, Brendan Walsh, Jay Kinder and Stephen Giorgio have been a rock down there. They've kept sides to minimal amounts of goals. But I just like Montrose tomorrow, BWS. I reckon Gardle and Andy Nee might be able to restrict the scoring power of Roval. The Montrose midfield, led by guys like Dean Stephen and Brett Johnson, have a lot of experience under their belt. It's going to be a super contest, but I think Montrose might just sneak away with a victory from Cencic Oval.
I'm going to have to disagree once again, Peter Baird. I like Roval tomorrow. They had the challenge of Murrelbach 3 weeks ago out at Cencic Oval. All the talk this year is about the top 3 sides, Montrose, Roval, Murrelbach, and I know the Hawks that afternoon were really disappointed to go down to the Mustangs. Now they face a Demon side who haven't lost a game since they lost to the Hawks quite convincingly in round 3 earlier on in the year. So we know that the Hawks know how to play the Demons. Maybe the Demons have worked something out about the Hawks since then. I'm not too sure. But at the same time, maybe they're due for a loss too, Montrose. They've been on a good run for quite some time, and Roval will be red hot for this clash tomorrow in front of the home fans. There's sure to be a big crowd out at Cencic Oval, and I think Roval by under 2 goals. The 5th and the last game we're going to look at tomorrow is out at Donvale Reserve, Daniel Cencic, with the Magpies taking on the Sharks. This will be a close one in the local derby.
Yeah, 4th versus 9th BWS. Last time these two teams met, it was Donvale getting the chocolates, and it shapes as a danger game for Donvale. Despite Doncaster's 9th place standing in Division 2 at the moment, Doncaster are capable of producing some really exciting footy. I'm talking about players like Chris Anarkis, Michael Batista and Limachese, all quality players. And as we've seen the last few weeks, Doncaster in very stiff on the receiving end of 2 very close losses to the Waverley Blues and Doncaster East respectively. It's a real chance for Donvale to entrench themselves in the top 4 coming into the second half of the season, with Bayswater breathing down their neck on the ladder. It seems like it's too much of an important game for Donvale to drop, but I'm going to go the upset. I think Doncaster will get home tomorrow by the barest of margins.
Again, I'm going the opposite, Dan. Donvale will win this game tomorrow. They've been well led in the back line by their centre-half back, Chris Jones, who's been in sensational form this year. And their defence has really been the unsung heroes of the Donvale Football Club. I know Jack Purcell gets talked up a lot along with Nicholas Murphy, but they only have conceded 783 points for the year, which is very credible when you look at the whole division against points. They sit in the 4, and rightfully so. Doncaster have been serviceable, but they've only got the 2 wins for the year, and I can't see them getting this one. Well, if you're a Division 2 supporter, you'll be well satisfied because there's plenty of great games to head out tomorrow afternoon. But let's turn our attention to Division 1 now, Peter Baird, with the first game we're going to have a look at is out at Balwyn Park between East Ringwood and the Tigers.
Yeah, the pace setters of the competition so far, the Balwyn Tigers, they've been fantastic. They come up against an East Ringwood side who were probably a little disappointing last week as they met Vermont out at East Ringwood Reserve. They went down by 63 points, did the Roos. Balwyn, though, they just go from strength to strength. They sit on top of the ladder, equal with Norwood and Noble Park. They've really gelled this year under Daniel Donati. Their midfield's gone up another gear. Rennie Gilchrist, Charlie Hendry through there have been fantastic. Whereas East Ringwood, they've lost a couple of players over the last fortnight through injuries. They miss Bernie Deneen spark and grit and determination out there. They miss their 2 ruckmen, Renton and Goodwin. I just think that the injuries are going to play a big part in this game, and East Ringwood have got just too many out at the moment to really match it with the likes of Balwyn. I see Luke Barker possibly having a bit of a day out tomorrow. I'm going to tip the Balwyn Tigers in this one. I think they might do it quite comfortably, BWS.
We saw East Ringwood firsthand last weekend, Peter Baird, and they were disappointing. They do have excuses, of course, with a lot of injuries down at the football club. They come up against a side who have impressed all before them this year. They sit on top of the ladder, and of course, rightfully so, Balwyn. They're not going to drop this one. Their mojo's returned to SEM Park this year in season 2012, and the run's going to continue tomorrow. Football returns to the LSO tomorrow afternoon. Daniel Cencic with Lilydale taking on East Burwood. This should be a good game.
Well, yeah, both teams are very gallant last weekend in defeat. Lilydale went down by 15 points to Noble Park, and of course East Burwood going down by 20 points to Knox. 11th versus 8th on the ladder, and it shapes as a real cracking game. East Burwood gave Knox a start last weekend, trailing by 21 points at quarter time, but matched them for the next 3 quarters of the match. Lilydale went down to arguably the best side in the competition last weekend by 15 points. But I think East Burwood are a very dangerous side. They've got tall and small goal kickers that can really trouble teams. Stephen Henshaw and Anthony Mariani for East Burwood this season have been in fantastic form. And players such as Alex Fior is also a worry for Lilydale. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Marcus Hoddies for Lilydale, who's one of the best midfielders in the competition and can really trouble East Burwood at times. East Burwood had a red-hot dip last week for 3 quarters, and we want to turn things around this week. They're 4 and 5 on the ladder at the moment and could be a season-defining game, and they'd want to win it if they're to stay in the finals race and be 5 and 5. East Burwood for mine.
Poses as a real danger game for the Rams tomorrow afternoon. Lilydale proving that they can take it up to the good sides on their home patch with a good win over Scoresby only a couple of games ago. The Rams, they've been good away from home this year. They've really struggled on their own patch out at East Burwood Reserve. They've got 4 wins for the year, and rewind 5 weeks ago and they're sitting well entrenched in the top 5. This is a must-win game tomorrow for East Burwood. They need it. They'll get it. 2 informed sides in Division 1 are the Noble Park Football Club and the Vermont Football Club, and they do battle tomorrow out at Tarara Row, Vermont Recreation Reserve, Peter Baird, in what is close to Match of the Day.
This one shapes BWS like a heavyweight boxing title fight. It's the champion in Noble Park taking on the rising challenger of Vermont. This is going to be an absolute ripper out at Vermont Recreation Reserve. Noble Park, they've been the kings of the EFL over the last couple of years. They're taking on the team that were the champions a few years back. They're rising to make another challenge now. Interestingly enough, these teams have won 8 of the last 10 EFL premierships combined between them. So these are the 2 most powerful clubs in the EFL in the last decade. Noble Park, though, they've had injuries this year, but it's their second-tier players that have risen to the challenge. Guys like Tyson Mitchum, Tim Kelly, Stewie Cleve, Cohen Howell, they've lifted. They've given great support to the usual guys like Stewie Kemperman, Luke Mann, Ziggy Olwen. They've been fantastic. But Vermont, they weren't to be denied last week. They put East Ringwood to the sword. We saw the best footballer in the Eastern Football League at the moment, Ryan Mullett, tear the Roos apart last weekend. Adrian Galino, he was a live wire up forward at the feet of Jared Dalton. David Leung was in and under for the Eagles. This shapes as a super contest. If I have to only go one way, though, BWS, my rule is I don't tip against Noble Park at home. So I'm going to stick with Vermont at home in this one. This one's out at Vermont Recreation Reserve. I'm going the Eagles in an upset.
I know I was very hesitant in saying after the first month of football this year that Vermont were a good side, Peter Baird, but seeing them firsthand last Saturday proved that they are a genuine threat this year. It was like watching the Vermont of old. They were moving the ball freely, they were fast, the game was free-flowing, and they backed each other up in every contest. It was exciting to watch the Eagles play this type of brand of football. Tomorrow they get a major task in what you said, Pete, is the dominating side of Division 1 football over a couple of years now in Noble Park. Maybe the only difference between these 2 sides on current form is a home ground advantage. I'm going to agree with you on this one, Frosty. Vermont in a tight one. Mullum Reserve has hosted some very close contests this season, with Norwood taking on Blackburn tomorrow, Dan. How do you see this one going?
Well, last time Norwood got over the line by 46 points, defeating Blackburn out at their Panther Pit. I watched it live, and Norwood set the tone early on, stamping their authority on the game. Players like Nick Edge, Jake Ford dominated the midfield and delivered the ball down to players like Brett English, who booted 5. It'll be interesting to see if Sam McCauley picks him up. Sam McCauley, the Division 1 SEN Team of the Year last season. Blackburn have disappointed in the last few weeks. They had a great win over Lilydale earlier this month, followed by couple of heavy losses to Knox and Scoresby, and their tests against the good sides have been suspect at best. Norwood haven't done a lot wrong this season, and I'm going to tip them comfortably tomorrow. I think Norwood will get over the line quite easily.
They've got a good record at home this year, the Norsemen, and they take on a side tomorrow that are below them on the ladder, and they would expect to put them away. They've got 7 wins for the year, sitting in second spot on the ladder. They've got some super players right across the ground in English, Clayton, Chris Nye, Big Jono Wind, and of course Stewie Hill running across the back line. But Blackburn, they've also got some good players in there as well, having some great seasons. Murray and Tui and Graham Johns, the evergreen Graham Johns up forward. He's kicked some goals as well for the Burners this year. How close can Blackburn get to Norwood at home? Judging by other games this year, probably bloody close, but I think Norwood will get this one by about 3 goals. Another massive clash tomorrow in Division 1 is out at Scoresby Recreation Reserve with the Magpies taking on the Falcons. What a game this shapes to be, Peter Baird.
Yeah, both these two teams have dropped some games earlier in the year that we thought they should have won. Knox, they've been building over the last couple of weeks. These are two teams, though, that love to deprive their opposition of scoring. We've seen that with Knox over the last year, and they've continued that trend this year. Scoresby have joined the party, and they love strangling their opposition this year under Scott White. Knox, though, I think they've added an extra dimension to their game in the last fortnight. At times, though, we've been able to see them score quickly and heavily, which is something we haven't really seen from Knox over the past couple of years. This is another toss of the coin BWS, and if Vermont v Noble Park had match of the round billing, this one wouldn't have been far behind it. I think the fact that this is out at Scoresby Recreation Reserve might just sway me to the Magpies. They've played in the big games a lot more over the last few years, having played in the last 2 Division 1 grand finals. Knox, they played finals last year, but they're probably a little bit more inexperienced than this Scoresby side. For that reason, I'm going to tip the Magpies, but with no certainty whatsoever.
It's a game you really expect to go down the wire, isn't it, Pete? And I'm going to go against you just for something different. And I'm going to pick Knox tomorrow afternoon. Over the past fortnight, they've kicked their 2 biggest scores for the year. So they're not only proving that they're a great defensive side, but they're also putting the score on the board as well. They've got great target in Ryan Jeffrey up forward, but they've also got the solidness of Jacob Castricum up back, who has been playing a terrific season for them. Brett Kay and Sam Jeffrey. Knox have got the spread across the ground that can take it right up to what you call a side is a massive contender this year, which I agree upon. It's going to be a really close game. The Magpies, they've been very good this year. They find themselves sitting in 4th position. They've been sitting a little bit higher to date, so their form has dropped slightly. This is an important game for them to get back on the winners list in front of the home faithful. It's a big task, but I'm going more of the upset side of things tomorrow. I like Knox over the last fortnight, and I think they can make it 3 in a row. The last match we're going to have a look at on the Friday preview is the Arndale Cup between Croydon and South Croydon out at Hughes Park. Always a great contest, these games, Dan.
Yeah, definitely. Last time these two teams met, it was only a 14-point margin in the end that separated them at the final siren. Of course, the radio game out there, South Croydon got home. Look, Michael King was fantastic last time, as was Mallison and James Crowe. They had a few goals between them. And the problem for Croydon last time was it lacked firepower when it counted the most. In the final term, they were outscored when they were only 4 points down at 3/4 time. So I think this game's going to be won and lost in South Croydon's forward half. Croydon defenders such as McConnell, Bull, Bentley will need to have good games and keep those South Croydon forwards honest. South Croydon attack better and defend better, and there's real question marks over Croydon's defence, who have conceded 926 points so far this season. But take nothing away from Croydon, they've really improved the last few weeks. They had 22 scoring shots versus Balwyn, and they were right in the game against Norwood, who were right up there in the Division 1 finals calculations. But I think South Croydon will have too much class right across the board and should get this one easily.
Traditionally, it's always a very good game between these two sides in the Arndale Cup. Croydon would have to fancy themselves a really big chance to get a win tomorrow against South Croydon. They proved at the start of the season that they were right up to the task and probably could have won that match. They didn't have Damien Cupido. Of course, they don't have him again tomorrow, but they've been finding other angles to goal. They've got Justin Ficcarelli and Weinart down there. They've got Dale Bull, who can run through the middle and kick a goal too. Are they going to be able to take it up to South Croydon, who are the kings now in Division 1 of the honourable loss? They're thereabouts. They're close, but no cigars. South Croydon, they'll look at tomorrow's game and go, we're going to win this game. Expect this one to go down to the wire. It always does. But another honourable loss just ain't going to cut it for South Croydon. We've gone through all 22 games across the Eastern Football League tomorrow afternoon, and I would like to thank the two gentlemen who have joined me today to dissect tomorrow's games, Peter Baird and Daniel Cencic. Thanks for your time today, guys, and we'll see you at the footy tomorrow afternoon.
Always a pleasure, BWS. Nothing better than to go through the round of EFL action on a Friday afternoon.
Can't wait to get out to Chirnside Park tomorrow afternoon to see them take on the mighty Wantirna South Devils.
Don't forget to set your dial tomorrow afternoon from 1 p.m. on 98.1 Radio Eastern for the match of the day out at Kimberley Reserve in Division 3 between the Chirnside Park Football Club and Wantirna South. Sure to be a great game. We'll have all the around-the-ground scores throughout the afternoon, along with the Saturday night scoreboard and around-the-ground reporters from 5 till 6.
And hopefully we'll get the live streaming up and running again. Ben Waterworth has been working on it feverishly all week. Hopefully it'll be back online this weekend.
Don't forget to tune in to EFL Sunday from 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. Proudly sponsored by Akira Urgent Care. Your health, your destiny.
And then again next Wednesday night from 6 o'clock, tune your dial back to 98.1 Radio Eastern as we bring you The Huddle with Ben Waterworth, Ben Warren-Smith, myself, Peter Baird, and Lauren Wood should be returning next week. We'll bring you the lighter side of the Eastern Football League, so don't forget The Huddle next Wednesday night.
That brings to closure another edition of the Friday preview. We've had a lot of fun going through all tomorrow's matches. We hope your team wins out there as you go local for your footy. And as a wise man once said, stick a fork at us, we're done.